And right now, it's Miss Bill O'Reilly.
Miss Bill O'Reilly, Mr. No Spin by his own accounts. Pictured here at a fundraiser socializing with, I believe, Elaine Bennett, the wife of very conservative Bill Bennett. It's my contention Bill doesn't just rub elbows with conservatives, he is one. All his no-spin talk is so much blarney. A case in point is this January 30th Factor episode where he featured so-called hard left Vermont.
I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you for watching us tonight. Impeaching President Bush. That's the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. As you may know, the state of Vermont has gone hard left.
Yes, Vermont has gone so far hard left that the governor is Republican Jim Douglas, who succeeded Liberal Howard Dean in 2002. Jim Douglas was re-elected in 2004 and again in 2006 with 57% of the vote.
That's the reason their politicians voted down Jessica's law, and a couple of judges gave very lenient sentences to dangerous child predators. When secular progressives take over, judgments about personal behavior, even criminal behavior, take a backseat to a holistic approach to life. As far as criminals are concerned, in Vermont, the philosophy is to rehabilitate rather than punish them.
What's a secular progressive? Well, according to Wikipedia, it's a made-up term of Bill's. What does any of this secular progressive, child molester hugging rhetoric have to do with impeachment? Nothing. It's simply a way for Bill to construct a liberal straw man to beat on. Bill's been spinning this issue for years. Here he ignores the simple fact that Burlington Free Press opposed Jessica's law not because it's soft on crime, but because, and here I'm going to quote, the mandate would force more defendants to take their cases to trial, forcing more victims to testify and creating the possibility of more acquittals because sex crimes can be difficult to prove.
But when it comes to judging people whom the SPs don't like, bring the judgments on. A few days ago in the Vermont towns of Dover and Grafton, there was debate about impeaching President Bush and Vice President Cheney. Now, this isn't important because impeachment talk is nonsense. But it does reflect a growing far-left movement in the USA, a movement that is coming to a town near you. One of the big problems in Vermont is that the media is dishonest. Newspapers in Brattleboro, Bennington, Rutland have all said, I call for a boycott of Vermont. Those papers know that's not true because I've stated again and again I'm not in favor of a boycott. But they print the lie anyway. So the good folks in Vermont can't get the truth from their media, and they are barraged with a philosophy that is unbalanced, to say the least.
I did a quick search of the papers Bill mentions, and I couldn't find the articles he's talking about. But I did find several critical references to him. Thin-skinned Bill has a habit of lashing out at any critics, which is, in all likelihood, why he's targeting three small papers in Vermont, a state inhabited by only about, 600,000 people. Wyoming is the only state I know of that has a smaller population.
Here's what the Brattleboro Reformer said about impeachment, quote, we think the efforts to impeach Bush and Cheney don't cast Vermont in a bad light. The Bush administration needs to be held accountable for a war it launched under false pretenses, a war of choice that has cost the nation dearly while doing nothing to improve our security. Now, the Brattleboro paper goes on to call President Bush the worst president in U.S. history. Now, I'm tempted to say the Brattleboro Reformer is the worst newspaper in history, but that might be overstating things. However, this impeachment nonsense is disruptive to America because we're at war with Islamic extremists. Fair-minded people can debate Iraq. That's legitimate because, let's face it, there have been too many screw-ups in this war. But to try to damage a sitting president whose administration has prevented attacks on our soil for 5.5 years is flat-out irresponsible.
I encourage everyone to read the Reformer article in complete context. It's available at reformer.com. Is the editorial liberal? Certainly. But later, you'll hear Bill accuse the paper of essentially not loving America. That isn't debate. It's demonization, a nasty habit of Bill's. So what has Bill's panties all in a wad? Of course, despite any protestations from Bill, he's conservative to his very core. But there's more going on here. Could it be that doggone ego thing biting Bill again in the butt? You bet. Because what Bill doesn't tell you is the editorial mentions him and his beloved Fox News by name. Let me read it to you since Bill overlooked it. He also complained that whenever he travels and tells people he's from Vermont, people tell him that they think Vermont is a far-left den of deviants. Maybe IGO's line of thinking is normal in the universe of Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, Ann Coulter, Michelle Malkin, and the rest of the right-wing screamers. If you view the world through a Fox News Channel prism, that's the way Vermont appears. Others know better. End quote. But Bill's not just spinning here by omission. His interpretation of the editorial is questionable. Is the editorial critical of President Bush? Absolutely. As Bill says, it claims he's the worst president in history. Hyperbole? Sure. But Bill's hysterical anti-liberalism is no less ridiculous. So he's a complete hypocrite on the subject. Worse, it doesn't appear to me he accurately represents the editorial's viewpoint on impeachment. The editorial never comes out in support of impeachment. Its point is 2 town select boards stifled voter initiatives to put articles on their town meeting warnings calling for the impeachment of President Bush and Vice President Cheney. You'd think Bill would be supportive of grassroots democracy, but no, conservative politics is too dear to Bill's heart. While sure, he criticizes conservatives from time to time, it comes to him hard and infrequently versus liberals he trash-mouths on most shows.
I feel sorry for the good people of Vermont. They're being held hostage by a bunch of extremists who put ideology over the safety of children and the good of their nation. And no amount of dishonest reporting can cover that up. And that's a memo.
Now, Bill's subterfuge through all this is his hypothesis there's not a shred of evidence to support impeachment. While I don't personally support impeachment, his argument is disingenuous to say the least, because there are many websites like this one with long arguments and lists of facts to support their claims. Typical of Bill's format, he opens with a conservative talking point rant. Then, with ideas planted in the minds of his largely conservative audience, he goes after a liberal in his following segment. This is a case in point. So he brings in a Democratic congressman and suggests Congress may actually entertain impeachment. The implication of his setup is it isn't just the far left out to impeach Bush. The phony debate that follows is nothing but a sham to protect conservatives. People Bill doesn't agree with, like the Brattleboro reformer, he accuses of hatred and not loving America.
Now for the top story tonight, we don't expect impeachment will have any traction in Congress, but you never know. Joining us from Washington, our pal, Democratic Congressman Charles Rangel. Here's what I object to. We need solutions to Iraq, Iran, Islamic terror, North Korea. We need solutions. This impeachment, nutty stuff, diverts attention away from that. Don't you agree?
Don't call it nutty. You're talking about freedom of speech.
Talk about impeaching a president based on nothing? Based on a difference of opinion over in a war? There's a difference of opinion on this.
Listen, impeachment is a legal process. It's in the Constitution.
Yeah, it's high crimes and misdemeanors. There's no evidence of any high crime or misdemeanor here. It's more than that. It's undermining a sitting president who's in the middle of a war, and you know we're in the middle of a war, and you know this is nonsense, yet you think that somehow some good can come out of it, and I don't.
Not that good is going to come out of it, that you are not going to restrict people who believe that the president is not obeying the Constitution as they see it, not to be able to scream out for anything.
There's not a shred of evidence to back up that opinion.
That's why you have the House of Representatives. They're not asking anyone except the House to do it. We're the only one that can impeach.
And you're not going to do it. There's nobody in the House going to do that outside of Maxine Waters. There's nobody going to do it.
No one who knows Dick Cheney is thinking about impeaching George Bush.
So you should be on my side. If the Brattleboro newspaper, which is, you know, off the chart left, cared about its country, which I don't think it does. I think it cares about hating Bush, hating Republicans, hating. Then the Brattleboro newspaper, in its editorial page, would say, this is what we should do in Iraq. This is what we should do in Iran. You know, Congressman, there was a big peace demonstration on Saturday. You weren't there, but some of your colleagues were. We interviewed Fonda and Penn and Sarandon. They didn't have one solution to one problem, Congressman, not one. And that's what I'm asking you and the members of the House to do in both parties. Come up with better solutions. I'll give you the last word.
Any newspapers that you find critical of President Bush, let's you and I go and burn those papers up and eliminate freedom of speech forever. And if you want to find the truth, listen to Bill O'Reilly in the zone where you don't have to worry about
where you have no spin. And then you finally said something that made sense, Congressman. We'd listen to me. I will guide everybody into the no-spin promised land.
And with that, we'll sing together, God Bless America.
All right, Congressman Rangel, always good to see you, man. Thank you.
Good to see you, Bill.
The people who Bill accuses of having no solutions seem to think a first step towards one is removing a president they deem incompetent in handling Iraq. It's a final irony that Bill, from time to time, is even forced to admit the president has botched Iraq badly. You'd think he'd be more sympathetic to their cause.